Welcome to Succession Planning for CRCs, the program that's here to help you develop and implement succession plan for your Community Resource Centre. My name's Andrew Huffer, and today I'm joined by the most magnificent John Denton. Welcome aboard, John.
Good day, Andrew. Great to be here as always.
And we're blessed with the presence of Jody Neild, manager of the Boyup Brook CRC. Welcome aboard, Jody.
Thanks, Andrew. Hi, John.
Hi, Jody.
Let's talk about where we are and what we're hoping to achieve in the program. So we're now into episode 2, which today we're going to be talking about the process of succession planning, part of our 5-episode program. Let's recap a bit. In a previous episode, we talked about the value of succession planning. So we covered about why we need to do succession planning. What value does it provide to your CRC? Why do it anyway? We also talked about managing risk for both board and staff members. What are some of the things we need to make sure we have in place to keep a smooth transition at all times throughout the lifetime of the CRC. We also talked about what are some of the things we can do to enable innovation and growth, and we had some great ideas from Jody there about what we can do to make sure we've got a whole lot of vitality in our CRC. And we also finished off by talking about some staff retention strategies. What are the critical things we need to have in place to develop and continue to maintain the people who are critical to the operations of our CRC? Pretty action-packed, just like today. Today we're going to be focused on getting an understanding of where you are as of right this moment as you're watching today. How's your CRC really positioned in terms of its succession planning? We're also going to be talking about being able to understand the skills you've got within your team by using a skills matrix, which John will take us through. And we'll also be looking at some strategies to develop and attract skills within your team, both your board members and your staff members. John, I'd like to hand over to you to take us through from here on.
Thank you, Andrew. I'll see if I can get the action going for you. With any kind of planning, it's very important to know where you're starting from right now. It's one thing to know what the destination and what the goal is, but it's very difficult to work out how to get there unless you know what the starting point is. So in terms of looking at the board and the skills that you've got and succession planning, then work out what skills you've got on the board currently. I'm going to take you through a tool in a moment to work on this, but let's have a think about this in a bit more detail. Quite often when people join a board, they justify their role on the board by particular experiences and skills that they've got, but quite often they don't talk up front about some of their hobbies and some of the other things that they've done in their careers and their lives to this point. And then, which is a shame, because quite often things will come out that can be used by the CRC to run different types of projects and provide different kinds of services. And I know in talking to Jody earlier that she's had some experience of this with her CRC. So Jody, tell us some of the things that you found out in that respect.
Sure. Our board is made up of quite a wide range of community members with different skills, and it's really a good idea to ask everyone to write out what their skills are, what their experience is, and also their interests. We have an accountant, small business owners, a Shire counsellor, a Shire employee, and a teacher as well. So there's quite a wide range there. And just with the introduction of the teacher onto the board, it increases and strengthens the partnership that we have with the school and just provides some more opportunities for us to be able to involve the school and in the projects that we get involved with.
Yes, thanks. So that's a great example. So use the skills that you have and know everything about the people on the board. The next thing, of course, is to look at some of the projects that you've got coming up, some of the things that are in the strategic plan, and think about what skills are we going to need going forward. So in order to achieve our vision, to fulfill our strategic plan, what are some of the additional skills that we need? And look at the gaps. And here's a tool that I introduced to businesses and not-for-profits to help with that process. So it's called a skills matrix, and the idea is that across the top you put the skills. So use a spreadsheet. This is it's a really great tool for doing this kind of thing. So across the top put all the skills that are needed, and you've got your standard office bearer roles on the board, so they're fairly easy to do. But then look at some of the other skills that are required to fulfill some of the projects and go down some of the paths that you want to go down. Down the left-hand side of the spreadsheet or the matrix, put the positions and the people that are in the organisation, both the board first and then the staff, and then work across and fill the matrix in terms of what level of skill is required in that role compared to the skills across the top. So in this example here, the left-hand rating, high, medium or low, is what skill is required by that person or role in terms of the skills across the top. So for obviously a treasurer, then financial reporting is a high skill requirement. And then on the other side of the slash in the brackets, put what the actual person in that role currently has in terms of skill level. And again, you can devise your own matrix and use your own methods of measuring. It could be 1 to 5, or it could be high, medium and low as here. But get a good feel for what's required and what you've got now. And the beauty of doing it on a single sheet like this in a matrix is that you can instantly see, everybody can see where the gaps are in the skill levels in the organisation. And then you can start to plan to fill those gaps and skill up. So any comments on that, Andrew?
I think it's a really good objective way of getting an understanding of who's there and who you really need. And I think it also gives the opportunity for board members to think, well, here's an opportunity for me to develop my skills a bit if they're perhaps in that medium range or the low range, and look at for the CRC to perhaps put some strategies and programs in place for people to build their skills up. So when they finish their time on the board, they leave with more skills and improved skills than when they started. The other point, I think it takes me into, I guess, thinking about who would I consider as my dream team that I'd love to have on my board. And as you know, John, I'm a bit of a footy tragic and follow some very ordinary football teams. So to me, I'm always thinking about who would I really love to have on my team. So I think it's worthwhile to be thinking about who is on that dream team, and if I did want to have them, how would I really make sure that I got them on board? And a lot of the reading I've been doing about successful sporting teams is they get their success from developing their junior players. And I think most of us who've lived in country towns know that that's a given. And ones that do it well have their senior team members working with their other players in bringing them through the ranks. So if you think about from a board example, to me it's having somebody new come on into the board or the committee, and someone who's been around a bit to spend some time with them to help them build their skills, to help them get familiar with their new surroundings, and to help them really, I guess, be able to perform to their full potential. And Jody, we talked in the previous episode about how you had a high school student on your committee, and to me that's a prime example of the opportunity to help somebody like that develop their skills as well as providing energy to the committee as well.
Absolutely. The example of having the high school student on the board was just one way to bring some new ideas and a new perspective and a fresh perspective to the board, and being able to learn from the experienced committee members was just a brilliant opportunity.
And I think in what makes it work is choosing the right people to hook up with, to connect together. And we'll talk a bit about that later when we talk about the value of buddying and mentoring. We also need to be thinking about who's in the draft, again from say a football or a hockey analogy. John, one of your mantras is always be recruiting. So to me it's thinking about who's around town that we could perhaps bring in to the board who may or may not already have some experience in being on a committee or board, but we think would add some good skills and perhaps with a bit of development would add some real value.
Yes, it's just like sporting teams have talent scouts out there looking for the talent that they want to bring into the team. So having identified where the gaps are in the team skill-wise, then get out there and start looking and start recruiting. So always be recruiting. And again, in smaller communities where you've got less people, you need to start being a bit creative and casting your net a bit wider. And Jodie, I know you've got some thoughts on that as well.
Absolutely, and with the new funding model through the Department of Regional Development, the outcomes that we need to be achieving within the CRCs are the business, economic and social outcomes. And if you've got certain people in your community with those certain skills, they would be an ideal target for you to be able to approach them, encourage them to sit on your management committees, and so you can actually achieve those outcomes that are requirements from the department.
So another reason to all be talent scouts and all be out there recruiting all the time. It's just a given when it comes to succession planning.
You betcha. And to me, it's thinking about where we're going to place these talent scouts. So where are the other groups in town that we can tap into, or like you mentioned, perhaps, or maybe they could even be out of town that we could tap into and bring in and utilise their skills and networks and relationships to make sure that your CRC achieves success. I think it's also worth talking about, I guess, what makes your committee or CRC a good place to be for people, and I think that's a critical part about attracting new people. So I think it's worth now thinking about how do we do that, and one of the first ones is making sure that being part of your committee or your CRC is actually enjoyable. People really like coming along, they enjoy being there and getting some value from that. So Jody, again, I'll throw to you to give some ideas or examples of how you've done it at Boyup to make sure you've got a positive and enjoyable environment down there.
Absolutely. Our committee meetings are held at in the afternoon, 4:30 in the afternoon, so it's not too late. People can get home and still have their evenings, go home for dinner. Most people can try and get away from work by that time. Being flexible as well, if that meeting time doesn't work, let's look at a different time to maybe hold it. It's also important with the meetings not to let them to drag on and really try and limit it to a 1.5, say 2 hour meeting max. So you know that your commitment as a committee member is not going to be for hours and hours every couple of weeks. You know that it's a monthly meeting for a couple of hours, and generally people are really happy to be able to give their time for that period of time. And also just making that the environment welcoming for the committee, provide some nibblies, provide some food. If you're having evening meetings, maybe have a dinner meeting once in a while. Those sorts of things really do contribute to the atmosphere and the enjoyment of being on the committee.
Yeah, and I think it's important as well when you're talking to people about coming onto the committee that you tell them that it's only for a particular period of time, because quite often people can be a little bit daunted or reluctant to get involved because they think it's going to be a really long-term commitment. And so letting them know that there is a succession plan in place and that it is for a limited period of time is, again, another way to encourage people to get on the board.
And certainly, Jody, if I was at Boyup Brook, and I know the quality of your wines down there, I think I'd be using that as an attraction to get me along to your meetings, that's for sure.
Oh, it's available if you need it, Andrew.
Fantastic. The other thing I think we need to be considering is really highlighting the results that you're achieving as a committee and as a CRC, and whether you incorporate that into your meetings or part of your promotional materials for people to feel valued about what they're doing as a group and what they're achieving. I think that's a really good motivational force that helps people see, oh yeah, our time is actually paying off and we're delivering really good value here. So to me, that's another opportunity that I think we could easily take advantage of with our CRCs. So it's really important to highlight the results we're achieving. Jody?
Earlier this year, the Boyup Brook CRC was fortunate to win the local Shire's Promoting Boyup Brook Award at the Australia Day Breakfast, and that was a culmination of 20 years worth of achievements and contribution and commitment by our management committees over that period of time, and also our staff and what's being able to be achieved, and everything that we do on a day-to-day basis promotes Boyup Brook, and so we were really lucky, and I was able to acknowledge how much the contribution of our committee and staff have given, and just the value of that to be able to achieve that award. And
what was the response from your committee and staff members about achieving that award?
Yeah, they were pretty rapt, and there was a lot of happy people who use the CRC on a weekly, monthly, even if it's only once a year basis, that really gave their support to the CRC.
For me, as a user of the CRC, if I saw that as an environment, I'd be thinking, yeah, that's a place I want to be part of. So, well done, and I think it's really important to really promote any of your achievements that you get there, because I think it really helps establish your reputation and it proves that you're doing really good work. And when it's acknowledged by somebody outside of the network, I think that's even more important. John, do you have a quick word on awards and promoting what you're achieving?
Yes, I mean, it's an invaluable thing for all kinds of reasons, and I get involved in this quite a bit with business associations, Andrew, and I encourage people to enter for awards and get that recognition, because A, it gets you to really think about what it is that you're doing and why you should get the award. It's a great motivator for staff and board members to be part of that, and it gives you a great marketing tool as well. So when you've got the award, you can actually, use it in your advertising and marketing, and people see that, this is a really outstanding organisation that are making a big contribution to the community. So it's invaluable.
And I'm guessing it'd be a pretty strong magnet for funders as well.
Well, it's a credibility thing, isn't it? So then when you're trying to source funding, obviously the new people you're trying to get on to provide funding can see that you've been getting results and you've been recognised for that. So yes, Andrew, great point.
So a couple more tips about attracting new people. You've mentioned the importance of having fixed terms, so people know this is a role, not a sentence. And I'd like to use that now to think about, we've got people there now. How do we go about developing them? What are the important things we need to really be thinking about to making sure they come away with more skills than when they come onto the committee? John, I'd be interested in your thoughts on how we should go about that.
Sure, Andrew. We talked earlier about developing your people and upskilling them as a way of improving the performance of not only the individuals but also the CRC. And it's also a motivator for people and a way of retaining people and getting the best out of them. So it always starts with going back to that skills matrix that I mentioned and working with all the people on that matrix and working out what development they want and what development is going to give the best return to the organisation. And then once you've done that, you can then build a business case for that development. And again, when you've got funders involved, sometimes you're going to have to put up a business case and justify why the money needs to be spent on that development. But if you can show that you've gone through a clear, structured process of working out what skills are going to be needed, how they're going to be used, and what the return's going to be to the organisation, then it's much easier to develop that business case. And to go back to a point that you mentioned before, Andrew, as well, is that part of that development can be setting up a buddy system with somebody in the community or somebody else in the organisation, and mentoring. I'm a big fan of mentoring and getting people who have got the experience and the skills to work with the people that are coming up in the organisation and pass it on to them. But that's the theory. Let's talk to Jodie and get some idea of how these things work in practice. Jodie.
Thanks, John. A real life situation that's happened within the Boyatt Brook CRC just recently is that we've had a long-term staff member leave us, and she was an accounts officer, and we made sure that we had one of our trainees undertake the units required, the financial management and payroll and so forth. So if the staff member happened to go on holidays, we at least had someone that was able to fill those shoes. Now, when the staff member did leave the organisation, it was just a natural progression for the trainee to then be, once she'd finished her traineeship, was going to be leaving the organisation, but we were then able to bring her back in as the bookkeeper for 1 day a week, which is just a fantastic way to use the skills that she learnt through her traineeship and fill the gap that was then left in our organisation. And I suppose it's also my position. 3 years ago, as I mentioned at the beginning of the last episode, I've been with the CRC for around 7 years now and started off as project officer. And with the introduction of our registered training organisation, our previous manager, Linda Coote, was trying to manage the registered training organisation as well as the CRC, and that was just becoming too big a task. And she had trained me over the years to then be able to step into the manager's position. And I'm one of the lucky ones who still has Linda as a current staff member, who I'm able to bounce ideas off. And she's the mentor for me, and I've been very, very, very lucky. I know that there's some managers that don't have that opportunity to have that person still able to guide them through the process. But it's a fantastic way for me to learn and continue to learn because she has so much experience.
So that's great, Jodie. We've heard it firsthand now of how the mentoring works. And think about that in all the roles on the board, of when you're bringing new people onto the board, maybe introduce them to things slowly, but start to groom them and mentor them into a particular role. And then, people stay on the board. I'm on a board at the moment as immediate past president, so I'm there to help and mentor the new president and pass on my 2 years of experience in that role. Andrew, have you got anything to add?
I'd just like to pick up on your point from earlier, John, I think it's important to think that buddies and mentors can come from outside of the organisation. So if you are in a CRC where perhaps you don't have an immediate manager who's nearby who can help you, like Jodie's had the luck or the good grace to have that opportunity. Think about, is there somebody within the community that could have that role, could help me in my position? Or is there somebody outside of the community that I can connect with using maybe our video conferencing facilities to hook up with them regularly in that mentoring role? So to me, there's lots of opportunities if you just think a bit beyond the normal approach of one-to-one type meetings. And
our CRC network is just the ideal place to be able to find a mentor and for ask for assistance. We're very sharing with our information and our experiences, and it's really, there's someone at the other end of a phone, at the other end of an email, at the other end of a video conference that is only too willing to give you a hand and support you in that way. So, and the department has had a mentoring program available, so the opportunities are there, and it's really important that if you don't know, just there's no shame in not knowing. People out there have had a lot of experience and are only too willing to help.
So use the network.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there'll be somebody who's been through what you're going through before.
Yes.
Great. Andrew?
Thanks, John. The other thing I want to pick up on, Jodie, is also that this is not just about individual mentoring and buddying. I know that you've looked at getting your committee together with other committees and thinking about, well, how do we as a group work together perhaps with other committees to make sure they improve their skills on probably an exponential basis, because they're really taking their view right outside their own community. And I understand that you've thought about this with neighbouring CRCs.
Yes, that's right, Andrew. We've had discussions, and it's yet to come into fruition, but have had discussions with a nearby town and their management committee to just, whether it's formally or informally, just get together and share their experiences and what is happening in their centre, and maybe just learn from each other. Networker events such as the cluster meetings, the state conferences, any opportunity which I continue to mention, but it really is just such a valuable experience for committee members and staff to be able to mix with others in the network and really share and learn from each other.
Great example, thanks. And again, it just shows a little bit of innovation can be done pretty much cost effectively, not mega investment in that, but would provide massive benefit in my book for your CRC and for your neighbouring CRCs. So let's think about the territory we've covered today. Again, an action-packed episode where Jodie, you provided some exceptional value for us again. John took us off thinking about how our CRC is positioned and getting really focused on where you are today before you look at where you want to go in the future. We also looked at the value of using a skills matrix to get a clear understanding of the skills you've got and need in your CRC. And then we talked about some practical strategies there to both attract skills and develop your people. So in between now and our next episode, We really encourage you to use your workbook to think about the 3 big things that you want to apply from here, and really go away and use them to implement them and help you to develop your succession planning strategy. Thanks, John, for joining us again. Always good to have your wisdom and insights from your years of experience.
Thank you, Andrew, and I've learned a lot from this episode as well, so it's been great.
Brilliant. And Jody, thanks, a sincere thanks for coming up from Voyup and sharing your practical insights and really valuable strategies. It's going to help a lot of people, I'm sure.
Thanks, Andrew. It's a great experience.
So, coming up, we have our next episode on information management. So I'm really looking forward to having you join us then. From now, it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Thanks, folks. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye now.